on FM and AM 1160. He rowed his canoe across the street, and he's ready to visit with us. He's Indiana County District Attorney Bob Manzi. Conversation brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. You really do have to be careful out there, don't you?
Yeah, we do. With this rain coming down, you see these cars traveling. We're asking people to be a little careful today.
Yeah, that's a good plan. Good plan. Hey, there's some interesting things happening out of your office and out of the Indiana County court system, including something that I think is really going to be helpful. You're setting up a new way for folks to get in contact with you. Tell me about that whole process, and making it happen, and what it actually is.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've always asked our community is we have so many police officers in our county, and they do a fantastic job. But one of the things that's vital to law enforcement is information. And people see what's going on in our community more than we may see. So what we did is we set up a hotline that goes directly to our county detectives. And that number I'm going to be posting on our Facebook page today, but that number is 724-471-7777. That'll go directly to our county detectives. People can give their name, people can give an anonymous tip. But what we're asking for is information about what you're seeing in your community. If you're seeing a house that's having an odd amount of traffic or other indicators of drug trafficking, if you're seeing indications of child abuse, senior abuse, we want to know about it so that we can investigate it and prosecute it if there's sufficient evidence. We also have an email address. It's dadetectives@indianacountypa.gov.
dadetectives@indianacountypa.gov.
Correct.
All right. Very good. I think it's a wonderful idea because of, well, obviously we want the information getting to the people who can do something about it, but it also gives others a bit of a layer of protection themselves in that they can see something and not feel that they have to do something about it. Let the people who are the pros at it get to work on it.
Absolutely. We're not asking individuals to deputize themselves as law enforcement agents. Our law enforcement are specially trained in investigations. They're especially trained in safety. We're simply asking for the information so that we can conduct the investigations in a safe manner that leads to a conviction.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll give folks a couple of minutes to get themselves a paper and a pencil so they can write that number down again, but we'll come back to that in just a couple of moments. Something else going on. First, in the Indiana County court system, you're going to announce today, I believe, charges in a case that we've not had this kind of a charge happen in Indiana County before.
You know, I haven't seen it, but later on today, we're going to be filing charges in a case of drug delivery resulting in death. We had a young man overdose and die in 2019. And unfortunately, we've had around 80 more individuals overdose and die since then. Mm-hmm. Cases like this are very difficult. They're very time-consuming to investigate and to gather the appropriate information. Many times, a prosecution cannot happen because there's just not sufficient evidence. Members of our Pennsylvania State Police have been working on this case for 2 years. They've been going through electronic information, multiple cell phones, multiple search warrants, and we're going to be filing charges later today in a drug delivery resulting in death, and I intend on prosecuting that to its fullest extent.
In the past couple of years, maybe it's been within 5 years, the legislature's really strengthened that law. And it's something that has survived some challenges. It still had some challenges in the court system, in the statewide court system, but that doesn't mean you wait until the courts figure out what's good and what's not about the law. If it's a tool that you can use, obviously you want to use it.
Oh, absolutely. And if the law's ever changing, and we'll adjust to the law as the courts change it and reinterpret it down the road. But for the time being, we work with what we have. And we have multiple cases for drug delivery resulting in death investigations occurring right now. Mm-hmm. Our county coroner, Jerry Overman, is fantastic to work with. We've been working side by side with him and law enforcement in these cases. And we intend on pursuing every case like this that we're able to.
Yeah. With this particular charge and some of the things that you need to be aware of as an investigative body and then as a prosecutor, there, I'm sure, are some challenges, some standards that must be met in order for this charge to be something that applies.
Absolutely. I mean, first you have to have sufficient evidence to support every element of the crime. You have to show that this individual sold or otherwise delivered the drugs that killed this other individual. And because you have persons with substance abuse issues buying drugs, they're not exactly writing down everything they do. We have to take a great deal of time to go through cell phone communication. And sometimes it's not even there. Sometimes that communication to get the drugs simply does not exist. Mm-hmm. So we may have a strong belief about who delivered the drugs that killed this person, but we simply don't have the evidence to prosecute it. As the individuals are using cell phone technology and other technology over the computers more and more, we are able to find more of that information to conduct these investigations and move them forward, as well as prosecute them.
So with there being other investigations in process right now, there's a possibility we could have more charges against other individuals, and maybe this individual, the investigation into this individual would lead to others as well. Those things have a way of doing that, don't they?
They do have a way of working one into another. I just spoke with a Pennsylvania State Trooper yesterday. We're investigating a home that we'll probably be conducting a search warrant on. We anticipate finding a good amount of drugs there. As they find information about who's going there, they're names that we frequently see in the dockets as people who are selling drugs, people who are using drugs. So it is that small crowd that we're trying to focus on. We believe if we focus on the main players, the main drug dealers in the county, the more and more of them that we can have incarcerated, the harder it's going to be for individuals to get drugs. And that's our play.
Yeah. He's District Attorney Bob Manzi with us here this morning as we talk about some important issues in law enforcement here in Indiana County. You've had in this past month some pretty big cases make their way through the court system.
We've had some very significant case movement in our courthouse. You know, our judges and our court administrators have worked very hard to keep the cases coming up to trial. And what we find generally is defendants don't wish to accept responsibility for their actions until they're facing those 12 people in a box. Mm-hmm. And our judges and our court administration, again, they've done a great job of moving the cases forward in the COVID backlog. We were able to have Dylan DeLessio entered pleas on 10 felonies. 8 of them were felonies of the first degree, a felony of the second degree, felony of the third degree. He'll be sentenced in November. That takes care of a significant amount of arsons that were occurring in the northern part of our county. Dayron Real entered a guilty plea to felony 1 robbery for the robbery that occurred back on Valentine's Day of 2020. Mm-hmm. We anticipate the other 3 co-defendants will be doing the same shortly. And lastly, we had Edward Bernosky enter a guilty plea on 3 cases, including a felony to domestic violence strangulation of the victim there. And he'll be sentenced in November. So as these individuals are facing juries and they're realizing that we're not bowing to reduce pleas in these charges, we're staying with these lead charges, then they're just succumbing to entering a plea and accepting responsibility for what they do.
Now, the DeLessio case is an interesting one because there were more arson cases than those for which he was charged, which would indicate either ongoing investigations of him or of suspects who might not even be connected to him or anybody else involved in the case. And I'm assuming that those investigations do still go on.
The investigations still continue. Initially, back in 2019, he was charged with 3 arsons, and that was the information that law enforcement had at the time. By continuing our investigation, looking into him for more, and you know, going back to our hotline, getting information from the community, we were able to close out 5 more arsons that we, quite frankly, would not have been able to close out but for help from the community. Mm-hmm. So we're able to close out more and more cases. Assistant District Attorney Dennis Clark in my office did a fantastic job. He has been working on those cases very diligently over the past few months to close out multiple arsons, to bring about a conviction for the victims there, working with the state police, fire marshals, and the ATF and Homeland Security. You know, a lot of this work, typically we'll have a splash about a charge happening. That doesn't mean we stop. Law enforcement in my office will continue to work diligently to bring about finality in most cases. So, you know, that's a great case of, you know, Dennis Clark and the law enforcement in my office worked very hard to bring about closure in 5 more arsons that without community assistance and their work would not have had.
And there you go, circling it right back around to where we began this conversation. The community was able to assist in helping to bring about those prosecutions. The hotline that you mentioned a few minutes earlier can continue to do that and maybe open up a new avenue for folks that can report suspicious activity. So let's get back to that for a second and give folks that number again.
Absolutely. That number is 724-471-7777. We tried to make it as easy as we could get it.
Yeah. And there's a website as well?
Well, the email. Yeah, the email address is dadetectives@indianacountypa.gov.
Yeah, you're pretty active on Facebook from the district attorney's office. That folks want, if they want information about what you're doing, and they want to see this post and the post that you mentioned a couple of moments earlier about the charges that will be filed, that's a pretty good resource.
Absolutely. They can always go up on my Facebook page. I take messages on there all the time, so I communicate with a lot of members of our community who are providing information or asking questions. And we want to be able to get that information to most people. What I find is many people don't fully understand what everything our office does, or they have some questions about the law, or unfortunately they hear a half-truth in the community and those rumors just have a way of snowballing.
Sure.
I'm the one that answers the messages. I take phone calls. I want to be able to provide the information because what I find is when members of our community have that information and they have all of the information, they're very satisfied with what's happening.
Yeah. All right. So that's another resource for folks. And of course, the new hotline will continue to monitor your site so that we can see that announcement coming later today, which we'll get it through our email anyway. But we appreciate your time coming over here this morning in hazardous weather. And is there anything else folks need to know about things going on in the law enforcement circles here in Indiana County?
We do have Labor Day coming up. We do have heightened DUI patrols. I always want to get that information out to individuals because my preference is that people do not drink and drive. If they do, we're going to be looking for them. But my preference is that, if an individual is drinking, hopefully they have somebody else to drive them, or they don't leave home, or they stay where they're at. It's the safest thing that can happen. And we hear from people in court so often, they're embarrassed that they got picked up on a DUI. They know they made a bad decision. My hopes is that they make the decision right now. If you're going out to a barbecue, please enjoy it, but please have a safe drive home.
Yeah, absolutely. He's District Attorney Bob Manzi joining us this morning here on Indiana in the Morning. Thanks.
Thank you, Todd. Have a great day.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. All of our interviews here on Indiana in the Morning presented by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Fox News coming up at the top of this next hour, and in that 9 o'clock hour, we are going to have a visit with the folks from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. They're